What unsolved mystery has absolutely no plausible explanation?
Silent scan.
Came home from work with a 12-pack of drinks. I was walking up to my door when I dropped said 12-pack. A bunch of cans roll out of one end, so I stopped to pick them up and put them back in the box. But there are 13. No matter what, one of the cans won't fit, and they were all clean, no chance of a soda just being left outside. I count 13 cans when I get inside. No idea how that happened. In another universe you drop your 12-pack and can only find 11.
Silent scan.
When I still lived at home and came back from a night out, my mother would often be up reading, and if I wasn't too tired, I'd sit with her a bit and chat before going to bed. This was regular occurrence for years. A couple years after I moved out, I get a text from my mom one Sunday morning asking where I'd gone. Was a little surprised as I was just in my apartment. She tells me that last night I came home late and we chatted for a bit, and she was surprised that I had left the house so early in the morning. Now occasionally, I would still stop by my parents' place to crash for the night, depending on where I was in the city, but I'd always let them know first. Figured my mom has just dreamt this. So I call her and explain that I wasn't there and ask what we talked about. She summarizes the conversation and gives me details about things she shouldn't have known about my night out egg. What was going on in the lives of the friends I had seen that night. Never figured it out, but now my mom teases and says she knows what I'm up to all the time.
Silent scan.
I once did a magic trick in front of 20 people as a teenager. We had orchestrated it, so there were 2 of us. So the trick is, I ask someone from the audience to pick a card, hold it above their head in front of the crowd, but card back facing me, so the entire crowd sees the card. Now someone on the other side of the window behind the crowd also sees the card, and with the crowd facing forwards, they don't see him. So he plasters the card from another deck on the window, and when he's done doing that, I throw the entire deck at the window, and lo and behold, the card is now stuck on the other side of the window. What happened surprised not only the crowd, but myself and my co-magician as well. I throw the deck, and the exact card is not only plastered on the other side of the window, it is also stuck on our side of the window, right next to it. My mind was blown and I still can't explain it to this day. We played it as a part of the trick, so nobody in that crowd knows what sort of black wizardry went down that day.
Silent scan.
2 days before the Space Shuttle Challenger blew up, I dreamt I was at the launch. The shuttle took off and caught the gantry. It started to veer off and I could hear the occupants screaming. 2 days later I was having a home haircut, and my daughter came in to tell me the news on the TV. It sent shivers down my spine. Of course it was coincidence, but very creepy. The strangest thing was that I wouldn't have attended the launch. I live in UK, and such a visit was unthinkable.
Silent scan.
I was late for an appointment one day and was speeding up a hill with a big curve to the right, the direction I was going. Almost as soon as I got around the curve I saw there was an accident in front of me, blocking both lanes on my side. Since there were only 1 or 2 of the cars stuck behind it, it must have just happened, because there were no emergency vehicles there yet. To the right of me was a sidewalk where people were standing gawking, and to my left was oncoming traffic in the other 2 lanes, so I couldn't go around it, and I was going too fast to be able to stop in time. I knew if I relaxed I was less likely to be as severely injured, so I quickly shut my eyes and relaxed as much as I could. And absolutely nothing happened. When I opened my eyes, I could see the crash behind me in my rear view mirror, and I was continuing along an empty, on my side, road. This happened about 35 years ago, and to this day I have no idea how that happened.
Silent scan.
We lived in a bi-level house with a chest freezer in the basement and a kitchen on the 2nd floor. When I was younger, I was a teenager, I was asked to bring tater tots upstairs, so my mom could make a casserole. I went and grabbed them and came upstairs. When I got upstairs the tater tots were no longer in my hands, and my mom asked where they were. I thought I had just spaced out and forgot them. So I went back downstairs and they weren't in the freezer anymore. Searched literally every square inch, nook and cranny between the chest freezer and the kitchen, and they were not anywhere. They never ever turned up. To this day my mom thinks I was playing a dumb prank on her. My most plausible explanation is that we live in a computer simulation, and they got accidentally glitched out of it. This is the 2nd vanishing potato related story on this post. Interesting.
Silent scan.
When I was 7 or 8, we had this neighbor who was a super nice old lady that would give us snacks and talk to us through her window. She was agoraphobic and never, ever left the house. Her kids would come by every other day or so to check up on her, and everyone in the neighborhood knew them. One day me and my friends were outside playing like always, when her son comes to bring her groceries like always. He comes out and asks if we've talked to his mom, and we say we haven't seen her in a day or 2. That sweet little old lady vanished from her house. Apparently no trace of her. Family was around a lot after that, was freaking out. I moved away a few years later, but they never found out what happened. It wasn't till I was an adult that I realized how fucked that whole situation was. Were there any news reports? Sometimes it's good to go back and Google these things and find out what adults possibly shielded you from. I think this happens quite a lot. Old people get confused, wander out in the middle of the night, get lost and die. Happened to someone near me last year. They found her in a river a few days later.
Silent scan.
Personal story, and is something that still bothers me till this day. I'm a soccer football coach of kids, great way to earn money when you're a student, and each year we have a couple of open practices where parents bring their kids to see if they like soccer, etc. After one of these practices, a kid walks up to me and says, "I'm sorry that you lost your grandma." I was a bit confused and I said, you must think of someone else," and I just shrugged it off. The next day I woke up for school and my parents told me my grandma died in her sleep and that her nurse found her in bed that morning. The kid might have mistaken me for someone else, but it still bugs me. Also, he never showed up at practice again.
Silent scan.
I was driving home from another state on the interstate, about an hour from home. I was in the right lane when someone cuts me off, forcing me to go into the middle lane. Now there's a car in the left lane, Mr. Scissors in the right lane, and the car in front of me in the middle lane slams on their brakes as I'm merging into the lane. For some reason, instead of doing anything else, I just closed my eyes to brace for impact. Never have done this before since, still don't know why I did. But nothing happens and I open my eyes after about 2 seconds. Somehow I'm on the highway going to my house, which is about 10 minutes away from my house, and there were no cars around at all. As far as I could see in front or behind me. Somehow I moved through time or space to avoid a collision, and I still have no idea what happened to this day.
Silent scan.
I was at a friend's house in high school. He was gone to some family event, and I was there alone chilling till he got back. While he was gone, I heard footsteps in other rooms, things falling over, doors opening and closing. I freaked the fuck out and locked myself in one room. The footsteps came up right outside the door of the room I was in and just stopped. The room I was in had 2 windows, opposite sides of the room, curtains on each. A few minutes after the footsteps stopped outside my door, there was a very loud bang on both windows at the same time, and the curtains on both windows, opposite sides of the room, remember, flew straight out. I'm talking almost perfect 90-degree angle from the wall, as straight as a sheet of paper. I called my friend thinking he was fucking with me. He wasn't. I could hear his family in the background. I've gone through every possibility I can think of. I thought maybe an intruder. But no, his house is so small, I would have heard forced entry from anywhere in the house. The footsteps wouldn't make sense, they would stop in one place, and then be heard again in a completely different part of the house. Nothing explains the curtain thing. They had no central AC, so no air movement to account for that blowback, and nothing can account for the simultaneous bangs on both windows. He's told me over and over he believes his house is haunted. I've never believed in ghosts, but I questioned my beliefs that night.
Silent scan.
For me, it's the battle of law. I'm not one to give any credence to alien stories with zero evidence whatsoever, but this story just makes me confused. Radar detects an incoming object, assumed to be Japanese planes. However, it was moving much too slow to be a plane. They fired thousands of rounds of ammo and flak at it, to no effect. Then they claimed it was a weather balloon. So essentially the official story is the US military was unable to shoot down a weather balloon with an immense amount of firepower. Hard to believe that's true.
Silent scan.
I had a wristwatch that my dad bought me back in the 90s. It was one of those kinetic watches that would wind itself when you walk, etc. Anyway, for some reason it kept stopping at around 1:30 a.m., never 1:30 in the afternoon. Sometimes it would keep going, but 3 times out of 5 it would stop at the exact time. We sent it to the Swatch company to get repaired, and a month or 2 later we got a catalog of watches with a handwritten note basically saying, "We don't know what the hell is wrong with your watch. We're stumped. Pick a watch out of this catalog and have it as a replacement." So that's my possessed watch story.
Silent scan.
I had one of those incredible Hulk face ice creams you get from the ice cream truck. I took a bite and watched as the rest of it fell off the stick, only to look down and see nothing on the ground. I still don't know what happened to my ice cream. I want my money back.
Silent scan.
This story happened recently and it legitimately weirds me out every time I think about it. It'll be great if anyone give me a possible explanation, cause my whole family couldn't find one. We're not from America. My 2 cousins, brother and sister, are currently in the US studying. During their free time outside taking a walk, a completely random young American woman approached them and told my female cousin how pretty she is, and whatnot. She kept complimenting her and talking about the positive energy that is radiating from her. They had a small conversation until the woman suggested that they should hang out another time. My cousin, excited to make new friends, she agreed. The woman told my cousin that her phone isn't with her at the moment, and she should give her her phone to add herself to the contact list. My cousin complied and gave her the phone. She added herself to the contacts, says goodbye, and leaves. Days pass and my cousin decides to call this woman to get to know each other better. She checks her contacts and finds her name. She clicked on it, and to her surprise, the phone number is from our country, not a US number. She calls the number to see who answers, and none other than my uncle, who has never set foot in American soil, answers the phone. It's my uncle's phone number, and the thing is, they both didn't have each other's numbers before she met this woman. I have no idea how any of this happened, and I have no possible explanation whatsoever, other than the very small possibility my cousins are straight up lying to us. My mom literally thinks it's paranormal, very desperate for an explanation.
Silent scan.